Welcome to Comics Bazaar, the channel of comics commentary and arcana. This video features X Factor number 82, cover dated September 1992. The cover is by Joe Quesada, inked by Milgrom, features Pyro attacking Havoc there. It's pretty dramatic. And of course what's happened on the title is that Larry Stroman has left, and we have a couple of interim issues before Jay Lee pencils the Executioner's Song parts of or X Factor's parts of the Executioner's Song, and then Joe Quesada will come on board for a memorable, if short, run as the new regular penciler on the title, starting with issue 87, that famous classic of the psychoanalysis of the team members by Doc Samson, one of my favorite comics of the 90s. Let's open this one up to the first page and get right into the story here. So it starts on the dock of, well, I'm trying to remember, in New York City, a dock in New York City, and we've got the military there, and they're wondering how long they're supposed to sit here staring at a boatload of muties. It's getting dull because a ship has sailed from Genosha, has been refused to dock and for the passengers to get off at various countries around the world, and they finally made their way to the US. Now the passengers on the ship took off from Genosha before the political situation there was resolved in Extinction Agenda, so they've been on the sea during all that period of time, and that is a story point in this particular issue. So this homeless drunk comes up bothering one of the soldiers. The soldier tells him, "Sir, with all due respect, take your questions on your breath and get going." So he staggers around the dock and falls over into the water, and he's reaching up to the surface when this clawed hand pulls him down into the depths. So what has happened to him? Let's turn the page. 22 pages of story and art in this issue. Well, it turns out it's Sauron. Now, Sauron was last seen in X-Force number 9 when he apparently died, but of course he is a significant Marvel villain and they can never die, not 100% anyway. So here he is saying, "Nice try, X-Force," but Sauron doesn't die as easily as Cannonball did, because in the continuity at the time it was thought that Sauron had killed Cannonball, but that was before it was revealed that Cannonball was one of the externals, that is one of these in effect immortal mutants. But getting back into this storyline, there's Sauron hanging out under the dock and listening to the soldiers speaking above. So what's the story here, Mr. Coswell? The soldier asks a man in a suit. "You're from immigration, you're supposed to be in charge. Mind bringing me up to speed here?" And Coswell says, "You needn't worry, Sergeant, the government is going to handle the situation." And the soldier asks, "Yeah, how?" "We have a task force in place to deal with mutant problems, such as what we're faced with now. I've requested their participation and they should be here before too long." So Sauron's confused in his weakened state. A mutant problem? Did they spot me already, but I'm still too weak to? No, they didn't even know. They didn't even look this way, he says. So there must be another mutant problem in the vicinity. Draining the life force of that derelict gave me enough strength to awaken from my regenerative state. Now I need but rest a brief time, and then alert my compatriots as to the existence of not only myself, but also some potential new allies for the Brotherhood. So that sets up what happens a little later in this particular story. So here is the title of the story, Sitting by the Dock of the Bay, and the creative team written by Peter David, guest penciled by Rurik Tyler, inks by Milgrom, colours by Glynis Oliver, and letters by Richard Starkings. So the scene here for the splash page is Georgetown, X Factor's townhouse headquarters, and Val Cooper is reading the riot act to Multiple Man, aka Jamie, and she's saying to him, "You were supposed to capture Rhapsody and then leave, period, not start harassing the local population just because you decided she was being railroaded. That wasn't your call to make, Jamie." So this is all a reference to events covered in X Factor issue 79 to 80. And then he rather humorously says, hey, it wasn't my idea, or really, whose was it? His, was not, was too. So basically, kidding around, and Val's not having it. Stop it, the both of you, she exclaims. Notice the t-shirts that the dupes, well, one of them is a dupe and one is the original Jamie Madrox, are wearing. We've got Ren and Stimpy there. So of course the Ren and Stimpy cartoon was aired in the early 90s, and it turns out that Peter David, his daughter, was a big fan of the show, so he worked in some references, some Easter egg type references to the show and the characters, in particular in the X Factor comics, and in that one I mentioned earlier, issue 87 itself. So Val says there, I mean it, you screwed up royally. And Jamie replies, all right, I did, I admit it, happy now, I just... And then Alex Summers interrupts Havoc, the leader of the team. He storms in to Val's office. You don't owe Val any explanations, Jamie, he says. I'm sure you did your best. Now scram, I want to talk with Ms. Cooper. So Val there says, Alex, you can't just come in barging in here while I'm in conference with. And he says, yes, I can. Take off, Jamie, I mean it. So the dupe melds with the original Madrox. And what happens, and it's really weird, is he gets from the two different t-shirts a composite t-shirt for the Ren and Stimpy show with both characters on it. Close the doors on the way out, says Alex. So now we get an argument between Havoc and Val Cooper. And you can see here now, I'm going to comment on the art, that Rurik Tyler, he's pretty competent. And I think that he's been told, or he's decided himself, to ape somewhat Larry Stroman's style. Because we're getting that Stroman designy aesthetic in his pages on this particular issue. But he doesn't have Stroman's skill. So you can see there that Val leaning on her desk, it's gone a bit wonky in terms of the perspective. But for the most part, he does a very good job, even though I'm fully aware that there's probably viewers now who are thinking maybe they don't like the aesthetic, but I think he's a competent artist. So Havoc basically says, look, Val, my understanding is that you're the government liaison, so interface between X Factor and the government, all you want. But if you have a problem with one of my people, then the complaint goes through me. So this is all about chain of command, and Val shoots back at him, don't you take that tone of voice with me. Alex Summers, the bottom line responsibility for X Factor's actions falls on me. I do not appreciate members of X Factor doing their own thing on missions that will ultimately reflect poorly on the group. And she continues and says she doesn't appreciate this my people attitude of yours when it's my butt on the line. So the two of them there facing off angrily at each other across the desk. And then the phone goes and Val says, how'd Jamie do that thing with the shirt? And he says he doesn't know. So every time the phone rings, it's trouble. And of course, it's Coswell from Immigration calling X Factor down to the dock to keep an eye on the mutates that have arrived at port. And then downstairs, Rain runs to get the door because the doorbell's going too. And who is it? Well, it's Lorna Dane, and she's out of hospital. Who put her there? It was Cyber and broke her jaw. So she's still got her jaw wired and is only able to whisper. Alex is happy to see her, of course, her boyfriend, but also Rain, and that's a bit unusual because the two of them have had a lot of friction since they came together in the new team because of the time that Rain was in Genosha and was being coded to be a mutate assistant for Havoc, who was a magistrate at the time. And when he came out the other side of the Siege Perilous, see how knotty and complicated it is, X-book continuity, right? Any case, back into this story, Alex has got the word that the team has to go down to the New York dock, and Lorna says she's well enough to go along with them. So elsewhere in Washington, D.C., at the courthouse, we've got Guido there, aka Strong Guy, and Marilyn Maycroft has given testimony against the Hells Bells, or not against them, but rather against the drug cartel they were working for. And the lawyer there says, thanks to Ms. Maycroft's testimony, we're going to nail the drug cartel cold. And Strong Guy replies, and no sign of Cyber. So that's why he's down at the courthouse in order to protect Marilyn Maycroft from Cyber should he try and attack her again. If you were going to make a move against Shrew, that's her code name, as one of the Hell's Bells, it would have been by now, says Guido. Considering his girl group is on ice and Lex messed him up pretty bad, the chances are it'll probably be a while before we hear from him again. Too bad, I wanted a piece of him too. So one of the government men says, okay, Strong Guy, we'll be able to take care of Ms. Maycroft from here. And she says, Strong Guy, that's a dumb name. And he replies with a big smile on his face, my real name's Guido. That's even dumber. What's your last name? Carosella, he says. And this is the first time that we learn Guido's real surname. And it's just slipped in there because he was coy about it in previous issues on the title. But here we learn it for the first time. So she gives him a kiss. She's really grateful. She says, take care of yourself, Carosella. You're a nice guy. So he's delighted there. Yeah, but if I called myself nice guy, I'd always finish last. Besides, no one would take me seriously. Don't sweat it, she says. No one takes you seriously now. You can see like the panel design here. Very Larry Stroman-esque. Definitely what Rurik Tyler was going for. But it's not, of course, Larry Stroman. Because if it were, we'd have really eccentric looking characters here, civilians in this particular shot, because that was one of the things he liked to do. And then there we are at the dock. There's the ship that has the Genoshan mutants aboard, and Coswell has gone aboard and he's talking to them. He's telling them, you can't just sit here indefinitely in New York Harbor. You people are just going to have to come to terms with that. If you were political refugees, that would be one thing, but the entire situation in Genosha has been resolved. Granted, there are economic problems, but our best information has it the mutate problem is a thing of the past. And as economic refugees, Coswell says, I'm afraid we can't grant you asylum at this time. So this is interesting because obviously I'm making this video in August 2025. And this debate in respect of asylum seeking and economic migration is very much one that resonates even in 2025. So this topical theme here in this particular issue has not become stale. It's as relevant as ever. And you, no doubt, dear viewer, will have your own perspective on it. But here comes the other point of view out of the mouth of one of the mutants. He says, Genoshan mutants, he says, you expect us just to take your word for it. That's all. That all's well in Genosha. We've gone from country to country seeking asylum. No one wants to hear from us or know about the mutant plight. And now we're supposed to trot back to Genosha because you say it's all settled. And Coswell, the immigration man, says, but it was all settled months ago. The rulers of Genosha were killed. It's being rebuilt. Mutates are no longer the victims of bias. And this guy says, we've no reason to believe you. And even if it is true, we're here now. America's supposed to be this great melting pot. One of the others says, but you're only allowed into the pot if you're the right kind of ingredient. And Coswell rebuts them. He says, that's just not true. But there are rules, procedures. Look, this is wasting time. Now are you going to leave? And then one of the mutants loses patience and manifests as a kind of like a snake dragon, which frightens Coswell. He runs up the steps. Nothing. Prodigal here says, Lucas, that did not help a bit. Nothing's helping us, Prodigal, says Lucas. I think this is Lucas here. We came here seeking help and instead but then there's a scream. So they're wondering, is it a trick? Up the stairs they go. Let's turn the page. But remember, this is interesting stuff from Peter David. You know, he's writing stuff at the time that is of interest to older, intelligent teenage readers or college-aged readers. This kind of political, cultural debate that he weaves into comics, his comics like Incredible Hulk, but in particular here with X Factor, of course, with that theme of the X titles, the bias and fear and hatred of mutants and so on and so forth. And speaking of all of that, here is the Brotherhood of Evil Mutants. So Prodigal spies them down on the dock, and Toad is their leader. in this era. And he says, "Greetings, my dear friends," as he climbs up this rope onto their ship. "Welcome to the United States of America," as he wears one of the soldiers' helmets. "I'm the Toad, here to inform you that the Brotherhood of Evil Mutants wants you." So let's turn the page. And Prodigal reveals, he gives his name, "I am Prodigal," and reveals that he's the leader of the group, the leader of these brave souls. And now, Toad, if you'd be so kind as to tell me why in the world we should be interested in aligning ourselves with a group that has the word evil in their name. We're desperate, yes, homeless, fatigued perhaps, even frustrated, but hardly evil. Now, this is a great page by Peter David. Like, he's really put a great amount of thought into this. How can a Silver Age title for a group of villains, the Brotherhood of Evil Mutants, how can that operate and work in the 1990s? Well, here we get the explanation. It has to do with postmodernism. Postmodernism is all about irony. So, Toad says as he leaps aboard, "That is because, Prodigal, you missed the subtle sarcasm of the name. You see, the mundanes perceive us as being evil simply because of what we are. Not that it's limited to mutants, you understand. There are other groups in their society who suffer from such bias. But mutants are the only ones who aren't protected by laws." So this woman says that doesn't explain the evil part. So she's Joe Beth, right? And Lucas says, "Who cares, Joe Beth? They come to our aid when the American government simply wanted to put us back out to sea." And Toad chimes in, "Exactly right. The use of the word evil is to parody the perception humans have of us. We have formed our alliance to show just precisely what we think of their pathetic labels. The intended effect is irony. I, the Toad, their leader, put it to you. What two words could possibly be more of an oxymoron than brotherhood and evil?" So great stuff there by Peter David. Great thinking out of what could be a wised up rationale for the title Brotherhood of Evil Mutants. And also, of course, the story element of Toad trying to seduce the Genoshan mutants to his side, but he's interrupted by a former member of the Brotherhood of Evil Mutants. How about Toad and leader? Although the reference to moron is about right in terms of an oxymoron. So who is this? It's Quicksilver. And remember, Quicksilver was a member, along with Scarlet Witch, of the Brotherhood of Evil Mutants before he and she joined the Avengers in issue number 16. So, Jack Kirby and Stan Lee's Avengers. So, there is some back and forth there between Quicksilver. Quicksilver says, between Quicksilver and Toad, he says, "I suppose you think you've come a long way from being Magneto's lackey, eh, Toad? Well, you're wrong. Once a lackey, always a lackey." But the Blob jumps in, and Quicksilver here is able to deal with him easily. "In the time it took you to say that, Blob, get over here, you silver-haired simp, I could have circled half of Manhattan, much less dodge you." So he grabs Toad, tells him to stop whining. He simply wants to talk. He says, let's see. "Oh, stop your whining. I simply want to talk. Unfortunately for you, I talk with my fists." Okay. Sauron tries to rescue Toad there, misses him because Quicksilver's moving so fast. Let's get past the advertisement there. And Quicksilver stops here. He says, "You see, Toad, the fact is that I never liked you. Your nauseating simpering and your lascivious attitude towards my sister. Perhaps you've impressed these others with your new attitude and your desperate need for orthodontia," so his bad teeth. "But we both know that I remember you when, and I owe you for those good old days." This is great dialogue by Peter David as he punches him. Then Pyro attacks, and finally one of the Brotherhood manages to take Quicksilver down, and that's Fantasia. And Toad uses the opportunity to knock Quicksilver over the side of the ship, down onto the dock, and he's there, he's gleeful. How's it feel having your powers, your whole body shorted out, Pietro A? You lampoon my leadership, but I knew to keep one of my most devastating members in reserve, just in case. What do you say to that? But then she's blasted by Havoc. And here comes X Factor. So this is okay as an anchor image, not as good as what Larry Stroman would do. Havoc here says, X Factor, nail him to the wall. I like that. Let's continue with the story. So we're going to get some versus stuff going on here. Havoc attacking the Blob there, and Guido taking on the Blob from behind. Go ahead, hotshot. Now that I got myself set, nothing can move me, not your plasma blasts. Not that steroid QP doll you call Strong Guy. So Strong Guy simply bounces off of Blob. And then Rain attacks. So how is Rain going to get on against the Blob? But she's lifted up into the air by Sauron. And Sauron opens his big beak and he says, I happen to be an authority on clawing out bodily parts. Lorna here spots that Rain's in trouble potentially. And she shouts, well, the thing is her jaw's wired, so she can't really shout, but she exclaims as loudly as she possibly can. Keep twisting, don't look Sauron in the eye, because of course Sauron has hypnotic power. Or let him get a grip. I'm on my way. Meanwhile, what are the Genoshan mutants doing? They're divided. They have different opinions on what to do. One of them wants to help. Prodigal, though, is holding them back. He says, help who? The evil ones who supposedly want to help us, or the opponents whose agenda we don't know? All of you stay put until we see how this plays out. So that's the smart move there. Havoc hurries over to help Quicksilver, but then he's stopped by Pyro's flame. In fact, he's engulfed by it. He thinks he's got one chance, so he calls in Polaris on the team's comm system. Toad here is on Quicksilver's back. No help for you now, Quicksilver, and once I've secreted my rather nasty resins over your face, I'll shut your insufferable mouth for good. So that's pretty disgusting. And it's Multiple Man grabs him. Keep your secretions to yourself. So Toad has never met Madrox, doesn't recognize him. I don't know who you are, fool, he says, but I'll teach you to interrupt me. And then, of course, it is Multiple Man. And Toad is baffled. It's not possible. Who are you? Multiple Man, can't you tell, says Jamie and his dupes. I've got a multiplication sign right here on my forehead. I like that repurposing of the X from X Factor into a multiplication sign as part of Jamie's witty dialogue here. But what about Sauron and Rain? Well, I said Sauron keeps opening his big beak because he's a Silver Age villain and he likes to talk a lot. How best to dispose of you, brat? He asks. Drain your life energy or just rip you apart as I did that obnoxious cannonball of X-Force? It's the wrong thing to say. There's a great little sequence here where Rain tunes in, you killed Sam, and then she just goes absolute beast mode. Yells, you killed Sam. She's in that total werewolf mode. Grabs him right by the throat. He pushes her off here because he does have super strength. And he says, you flea-bitten brat, you won't get another chance to. Let's turn the page. But Lorna's there attacking him. And she knocks him into that crane tower. She goes after Rain to grab her. But Rain is so enraged in her wolfen mode that she lashes out at Lorna. And Lorna has to let her drop into the water. And then she spies, or rather hears Havoc calling for help. And they've rehearsed the move. He says, stay out of their range. That maneuver we discussed, Fireball XL5. So she remembers it. So he sends up a plasma blast. She's on it, she says. But what is the move? She's able to magnetically somehow deflect his plasma blast and knock it at the Brotherhood down on the dock. And she knocks out Pyro. So that frees Havoc. So you can see him there leaping over the lowering flames. And with Pyro out of action, he says the flames burning down. Perfect. So the Blob there, he's super confident. Not so perfect Havoc. You still have to deal with. But the ground he's standing on starts to shake because Guido has pulled up the boards underneath Blob. Blob falls into the water. Guido there, he's worried. He's not coming back up. Wonder if he can swim, because of course he's not a killer. So he's climbing down to check on Blob, and up comes Rain out of the water, and she is in distress. I did it again, she exclaims. I swore I wouldn't have, but he said he killed Sam, and it happened again, and it's going to keep happening. So Guido's there telling her to calm down. I don't know what it is, but if it stopped one of the bad guys, how terrible could it be? So Rain worried about this murderous streak that is within her, and that comes out when she goes into full Wolven mode. And the Toad here, a little comic moment at the end, he commands the Brotherhood to attack X-Factor, but they're all taken out. And so he runs right into Quicksilver's knockout punch. And that's the Brotherhood, all taken care of on the dock of the bay. But Prodigal's got a question. He says, and what, may I ask, are your intentions for us? Is this how mutants treat one another here in America? The Brotherhood was at least offering us help. Are you now going to return us to Genosha, or force us to return? Havoc says, but there's nothing wrong in Genosha. No one was lying to you, except maybe the Brotherhood, if they cared about helping anything besides their goal of domination. Believe me, if Genosha were still a problem, I'd be fighting to keep you here, but it's utterly safe. You're running from a situation that no longer exists. But Lucas is skeptical. He says, that's easy for you to say. You're safe and sound here. If we go back and you're lying or mistaken, then we're the ones who are finished. So Havoc says, all right then. If it's the only way to put your minds at ease, we'll all go to Genosha with you. So Quicksilver's taken aback. Us go to Genosha. Surely you're joking. His head in his hands. He's not joking, says Lorna. And don't call him Shirley. We've got to have a joke at the end as well. Another pun from Peter David. That's a pretty good issue. Of course, it would have been enhanced had it been drawn by Larry Stroman, as would have been originally the expectation of readers, that Stroman would have done a good long run on the title. But he got the call to go over to Image, and he went over there and he did his own creator-owned title, Tribe. But he would have been better served, in my opinion, staying on another couple of years with Peter David on X Factor. So there you go. Next, Expatriates, X-Files, or is it Isles? X-Isles and X-Force. And it's another fill-in artist, if memory serves. I think it's Mark Pacella maybe does the next issue before Jay Lee comes on board for Executioner's Song. So one page of letters there. This is a note about editorial changes. So Bob Harris was editor of X Factor, but Kelly Corvez and Jay Gardner are taking over as editor and assistant editor because Harris has too many books that he's keeping an eye on. And there you go. I do hope that you enjoyed this review and commentary on X Factor number 82. Let me know your thoughts on this one in the comments section. If you enjoyed my review and commentary, please like and share the video. Really does help the channel. And if you haven't done so already, subscribe to the channel and stay tuned for more content like this.